Hey,
Hey,
how are
good.
you?
I'm good.
Cool.
The weather is good, so I'm in my terrace.
Yeah, you're like looks like you look like a frame of a movie.
I'm in the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have these glasses, and the filter is kind of like movie.
Oh, nice, nice, nice,
It
nice.
really feels like in a movie. Absolutely. Ah,
So the reason why we're here is I just wanted to talk about the video I showed you to Jorge. The
Which
one,
video?
which one was it? Ah, from the last open house last week when we did this bit of recording with
Yeah.
projection
Yeah,
and
yeah,
lights and stuff. And I remember you
yeah.
told me about some ideas, but
Yeah.
is it possible to watch it again here? I don't know if it's possible because I don't think I have the.
You should be able to share the screen, huh?
Yeah, it's more about if I have the
Yeah,
video or not. I think I
with
have to go to
audio.
YouTube. Yeah, that's true. No, I mean not the audio because we weren't
Yeah,
doing
the video
audio stuff.
doesn't have audio. True.
Yeah, audio from the neighbors. Let's see. It's a bit long, so probably I'll just skip through. Let me see what I can do. Or maybe I can just like play it and we can talk about it. Share screen.
Okay, like best practices reacts to GlitchMe 3D.
Yeah. So I hope it's working.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're seeing.
Yeah. Okay. And yeah, maybe I can just skip through a little bit. Let's see here. Or maybe the second part of the video was more interesting. Yeah, this one.
Yeah, I mean, I think like the first part, we just try to modify a bit the visuals, but maybe in the second part, we start moving a bit more.
I think it's just different. I don't think it's more, let's say, I wouldn't say that it's less interesting, because it's just different. Like the second part, it has texture. The first part is very flat. But I found it interesting also that you put these simple patterns. You see, like if you go back, can you go back to what you were?
The first
more
part.
or less, yeah. Before, or I don't know, like at some point you were just you were also projecting some simple oscillator also. So that's what I mean, that it seems this to me like if you maybe like Illustrator, when you put layers on top of each other, and in a way they're kind of they're harsh, like they're not that they are not blurring or fading between each other, which it happens in the second part and what you show me. Yeah, but the first part,
the second part.
yeah, but the first part I found also interesting because it's just completely different, but yeah.
We have a word we say like in visual art, but I just can't think about Spanish word, which is plenos planos.
Plenos planos. Yeah. Get your association. Yes.
Yeah. But this also, I mean, I remember we started to do more black and white also because we have like this screen that this like transparent screen that with color, it's like, I mean, I don't like very much how it looks like with color, but I think it's interesting when you start like doing like a different kind of layers, but not layers on Hydra, layers of what is on the front, and then you start having more things on at the back, like physically.
Yeah.
Like exactly this part, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, like I think I noticed that and moved the one of the DMX lights so that it directly shoots to the the little screen in on the left. I don't know if it's clear, but
No.
so right now it's like going like reddish color to blue, the one that is like behind my head,
Behind your head. Ah, okay.
like close to like center, like a bit left from the center. That square screen.
Yeah. That's a DMX light.
Yeah,
No,
so
that's
it has a little bit of projection, but I moved the DMX light to the side. So it's like a side light. And it doesn't cast light on the transparent screen, but it goes like more or less directly to that square screen. So it has different color from the projection.
so you mean like the projection and make some light from the DMX light.
Yeah, but the DMX light doesn't go to the transparent screen, not so much.
Mm.
Yeah, this part is really has really a lot of depth.
Yeah. I mean, but always is the question, like, like, it's like, what do you guys want to do with that, because that's what I mean. That's what I meant with things like if you compromise yourself with, I mean, if you said I want to create a performance, so if you want to compose, then in that regards, and I think, okay, so you have somehow like some atmosphere in the first scene, like that. It's what I call kind of an illustrator, or this harsh layers in top of each other, and now I see this is a completely different scene or another ingredient of your soup, that this is more like I would say when this is more like a dramatic part of the performance somehow, like here you get all the full attention, like if you think, if what I'm trying to do is an analogy with a performance, then you can imagine like this is the place where this is the time where the people cannot yeah, this is like the dramatic part of or something that it has a lot of depth. Yeah, but again, then the first part is very different, so you might need in terms of composition to differentiate these parts if what you're working is towards composition.
I see. And then we started putting Flor started putting some paper.
Yeah, because I'm not convinced with that screen.
Yeah. This reminds me of when Naoto and myself, we were trying to work with the TV, and then it's not working, and yeah, it's very similar, the structures whole. But I mean, that's why I think going into composition is just I think should not be the thing. I think it's just very complicated issue. Rather just because it's just naturally, this is just not working somehow as you want it somehow at that moment, therefore you have something to do. And so, and then it's organic. So it's not, so if then it will be constantly adjusting, but never arriving. And I think that's I think somehow if we go back, I think some like principles of like on the way how I think now to myself, like we construct things, and I'm interested in that path, is in instability and not trying to arrive,
Right.
but also you have to be sensible enough, because sometimes you want to, it's a tricky thing, like, because you still need to, if you follow your ego, you will try to, I think both extremes that are not working. If you try to just not arrive and then just you keep on, it will be the same with movement. If I will just start keep on moving and moving, I think that's a kind of a difference of, I will contradict myself, but try to be open to what I'm saying. In movement, in dance, let's say, then you will have you can move, and I think that will make a difference between somebody who is professional somehow or has like knowledge with body knowledge and somebody who doesn't, is that the one who does know, it will have more conscious elements from which the person can stay longer and try to improvise, I think. While, so then you as an audience can catch nuances within the movement, while the other person might just get into the flow without knowing what is going on. So it's just the catharsis that allow the movement to pass. And there is nothing wrong with one or the other one, but the two approaches are quite different. And again, I think if you go either as a very technical, even is, yeah, but if you go in that regard to more like this professional dancer approach or this empirical dancer approach, then it's just flatten the thing in both spectrums. The question is, and the difficult part is how to try to get in the middle. How can, let's say, for instance, how can, if I know about dance because I went to school, how can I somehow fake that I don't know and try to allow me to still have this beauty and this naiveness and this all these beautiful things that comes from not knowing about dancing. That's some things, for instance, that I told Naoto constantly, and Naoto confronts me very much in the stage. And when I show, for instance, this to other people, they always are in love with Naoto and in the way how he moves. Because then I have shared with him this thing, like for me it's very difficult to move because I lose it. That's something that is a constant in my movement. I'm trying to, in a way, negotiate. And then I cannot just try to not know, because that will be as the case of people who are doing careers in faking, which is a concept in art. I think also I shared with Flor this concept when we were in the museum, I think, this idea of faking. So there are people who do go towards faking, and it's a very complicated thing that you really go towards that direction, or that so rather, so I cannot just try to be in state one of dance because I study that, but nevertheless, maybe since Naoto is there or other people, I will try just then somehow to hijack my attention somehow. And it's an impossible task because I will be constantly go back and criticize and trying to go to technique form and all these kind of things. But it's just an invitation to try to find how can I get there, because for me the difficulty somehow is try to negotiate that side. So this whole long analogy is to say that I think if what is interesting what you guys are doing is that, because I see similitudes in what we do now also, but in a scenic, as an scenic proposal, is that I think you don't want to arrive, but then but this is like this is an open question, and then all of us have here, like, because maybe it's just enough what you guys are doing, maybe it's not enough, maybe you have to do more, but like we don't know, like the only, so it's, you see what I mean? It's like nobody knows. So who knows?
Yeah, I think this is something we were talking yesterday. I mean, I was talking with Flor that from different perspective, but we started to think that we are making some kind of objects like this modular stuff, but they're not instruments. So it's not like you master something. Like, for example, if there's like oscilloscope or some kind of display is lying on the floor, but or like there's some motors that moves with the sensor, but it's not like we're like kind of mastering them to like how to use them as an instrument, how to use them in that scene. But it's more about like it's like an invitation or it's like agency that's there, and we can do whatever we want with that or not to do with it.
But maybe if I can interrupt there, like to jump there, like, and I can bring back a bit, bring a bit of my, like what I do with Joe, for instance, with this Moody, that is the thing that I presented in Ars Electronica the last time, and I don't know if you saw it, but it's just a wearable that is, it has a light here, and it just changing the color depending of the mood of the people. So I'm bringing this here because at some point because we were working technically building this thing, at some point we realized that first, for sure, we didn't want it to try to make it perfect, and second, it didn't. So since we didn't, so at some point we were in between, like, do we need more money to actually really reach for these people who can maybe get close to what we need? And so then we find out, like, during this process, like, actually we don't want to reach, we don't want to arrive there. Then it it was clear to us that, okay, we are somehow capable, so we have we have technical knowledge, so let's just use it to make it the best we can, but we cannot make it perfect. So, and this actually, that's the core idea of faking, is that if you don't know, then you can try the best you can, and then by itself give a core. So, for instance, I don't know, in some framework, perhaps Naoto might know more than you in something with electronics. So, and then perhaps if you keep on going, then it's completely fine, because you cannot, you're gonna advance for sure, and you're gonna just go get better at, like, just without knowing so much. And in that case, it's just fine. So that's, I think that in that case, I think perhaps that could be interesting, because I think you want to keep the individuality within the things that you guys do.
That's kind of also like a best practices, right? It's that it's also something that you cannot judge. Other people cannot judge in that sense, like because you master something that is, or master or practice something that is not, following how it should be.
Yeah. Yeah. So I can imagine, for instance, if somebody's going, I don't know how was your experience, but if people go, and I guess if they start asking you, how does this work, or how this, like, I can imagine that it's like, because, like, I think it's very interesting. Like it reminds me, like, if you, I was trying to find also interviews with Gerard Richter. He was really good in that, and also this guy with the light, the guy with the light, Kanye West, the guy.
James Terrell?
Yeah, like these guys, if you like, they have no interviews, because the interviews are like, it just work, like they're flat, and it's not because they're assholes. A part of it, maybe they are or not. It's just like in Richter, for instance, he said it was possible at that moment, and that responds to really to just being in the moment, which I think is at the core what you guys want. And I would like also to, that's what I evoke, and I try to work on that idea, how to defend just by doing, that is just fine to be, actually not to do, but to be. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think we've been like thinking about this, how to be in the action. Maybe this is something that we've been talking also with another friend, but I think it makes sense with this concept of the spirit of the words, no?
The
Like
spirits of the words. Can
yeah,
you introduce this a bit because I don't know about this?
well, I think Naoto can explain it better because it's
Oh,
maybe
yeah, I can try,
from
but
the culture.
yeah, I mean, it's a Japanese word that we have, kotodama, which is literally spirit of a word. We say it because, like, just to say, think that if you say something good over and over, it has a spirit and it can become true. Or if you say something bad, then it might, come back to you.
Right. Get it.
Yeah, and I think it's related maybe not only to words, but probably with language. I remember like the last time we could go to Netherlands, we found like it was like a gallery. I don't know
Like a
if it
show
was
window.
yeah, and it has this it had this statement, I am what I am doing.
What I am what?
I am what I am doing.
Ah, yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think it's interesting because, well, we've been talking with Seb, a friend who he's Argentinian, but he lives in the Netherlands, and he was saying something about, well, I'm not the right person to talk about this, but he was studying Chinese for like many years, and he was telling like I think it's in this kind of present continuous thing that is related to Japanese, that when you are, for example, if you want to say you are in the house, you are also the house. Like this idea of you are doing something, but you are also part of what you are doing. Like that thing is also you, and you are that thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, but like also, is what I found interesting, and I think this is things like you guys are in a case of use, like you're in a place, for instance, that I would like to be also with Naoto in a structure that's what similar, for instance, what I was doing in Mines, what I was doing in Motion Bank was a case of use. So it's basically then I have like you have a specific research into an scenic something. Therefore, I think I also think could be interesting that you technically develop things. You don't have to also, but I think the anyway you do that. So how to say this, like, so all these things that we are talking are meta, and I see them, they're very entangled, and I think they're passing through things that we also work with Naoto. So this is a community. It's becoming a community, but like, but this is to say like the in the case of use, like I mean, what I'm trying, like, let me put it back. Like, I think one of the reasons why with Naoto we decided to work like that is because it's the only thing we could do, right? We could not do something else. It was just on distance, and then just like the conditions give us the rest, basically, and that's it. So, but like you guys are in a different place, right? So you guys have like all the conditions. It's completely the opposite of what Naoto and myself we had, or we have still. We don't have conditions. So since you have all the conditions, it might be interesting, it might be not, and any way you do it, that you do what you're doing. Like, I guess you have, if I think from what I remember in your research, you have times where you start researching about some printing, some paper. So you do, yeah, some approach to, you do some iterations in technical wanting to maybe do something, maybe not, but you do some research in clusters. that you call these clusters. I don't know. I think somehow you have a name, I think, for these clusters. But yeah,
Like scenic objects.
like objects. Yeah, yeah. What? Yeah, but
Modular.
this is interesting that you mentioned this because so you have modular objects. Then in a way, like then you're grouping them and you're degrouping them organically depending of what's going on. But also, what you can also think in terms of a durational performance is in a scenes, perhaps. Like that's what for instance, what I saw at the beginning. Like for me, that's kind of a scene, but maybe it wasn't completely. Like I was specifically speaking about this. So you have all there was a complex image projection into different surfaces, but there was also one square that it was just passing a simple oscillator, black and white, like the first thing that you see with a Hydra. Like this simple square is what I'm talking about. Like, because if what you want to do, we went with this with Naoto sometimes when we talk about like glitch, for instance. Like if in a way what you're doing is trying to glitch and work with errors, the glitches, we speak like not even conceptually, but just what physically happens with the pixels on the screen is that they take over the screen very fast. So you might want to be more economic in the way how you glitch how do you use how you let the glitches put it out. For instance, I'm like bringing it back to what I'm trying to say is in the first part, it seems to me that kind of worked because it was kind of simple, but maybe it wasn't so simple, I guess. But I was just, I guess, focusing just in this simple square. And then afterwards, then you see all these things that are just blending. And this is in reference to this. This for me in a way work as a scene or moods, And perhaps if I think choreographically speaking, because I have approached choreography like that before, is that when I have worked with complex systems, that you are in a complex system, for instance, then I just work a lot. And then I generate sets, what I would call sets or scenes. And then, but I don't generate a set structure of how these scenes are going to be triggered. Meaning that I'm not saying now go a scene 1, 2, and 3, and 4, but depending of how the things are flowing, then I will choose the 2 and then 4, going back to 1. But
so you have some kind of structure, but so that it won't go to like just a chaos.
Exactly. No, for instance, in my case, and that was one of the last things that I was like trying for myself, and then I realized, okay, so this is something that I want to work. And that was some years ago. Maybe I like to work in that more now, because now I understand a bit more of that. Is that maybe like the choreographic thing is a bit extreme, but then because it deals with space and time, then I was just really making sure that every single element have all the combinations, and I put it in I don't know if you have seen like how Ana Teresa that keeps making, she makes choreography. But anyway, so I was just making like a very complex network of possibilities in every single scenario, which from the outside it looks like completely banal because I was just sitting and I was supposed to give a speech that I never gave, but then I was offering the people to some objects, and then depending of these things, then I will start reacting in like a fusion reaction, depending of how the objects were touch or approach or things. This was like so to be honest, I think that's not really practical because it just I think it was right before I stopped dancing, and it was for me just to try some things, and then after I realized, okay, this can be done. But it's not really practical because then you have to do so much work. At the end, just you have basically a partiture, so you have a score, and you know exactly all the single possible elements of like convoluted network, and they are in subgroups that are what I call as a scene or moods. So I don't think it should be so extreme, like to go as in that perfection, but perhaps you would like to start understanding how things might work for you. I think I introduced this idea to you now, sometimes when I talk about like the simple approach to this that I'm trying to say is, in improvisation dance, you have zero ground. It's a place where you start. So if you have technique of all these kind of things that will block a dancer afterwards, then you know there is some base ground from where you can go back. So if you start from there and you know you will have a performance of maybe 30 minutes, it's very common then as a dancer you will have a common ground, like ground zero, but also point 1, 2, and 3, and then you play just with this, and then you can go more complex in the way how you propose this.
Yeah, I think it makes sense in at the part that, well, I kind of think maybe this is not something that we like literally said, but when I think about this idea of these scenic objects, it has a limitation because we are designing how to interact with this. For example, at first it was something static, and then we added wheels to these objects because we know we can move it on the space. And we also added these curtains that we can hide the screen or then to show. And we have like these kind of possibilities of interaction that I think I'm quite conscious about what I can do with that, because I don't see myself as a performer, but I can be conscious about what can I do with that object, what is the relation I have with that object when I'm performing. And I think everything is not scripted, is not planned. At some point we are jamming because also we are doing visuals, and while we are doing visuals, we are kind of building something on the space also. That is a fact. And I think like these objects help us to move and help us to interact on the space, in the space.
Yeah.
Yeah, just to jump back to what Jorge was saying about kind of, you know, this zero or like ground. I think it's like something I consciously do with live coding, that I know that quite a lot of people like just, you know, keep adding things to the code, like especially with Hydra or maybe tidal cycles as well. Like you have patterns and then add more patterns and more and more and more. Or with Hydra, you add Kaleido and then you have like different colors and more layers. But something I consciously do is just like erase everything, well, maybe not everything, but like chunk of a code, and we just come back to something very simple. Like that's really something really practically with the code I do. In that video, I think I did something more or less. Then I was just thinking that like, how can we do it with other objects? Is there something that we can, like, is there something that we can define that we can come back to at one point in the performance, let's say?
Yeah, I was thinking also that, because now what Flor was saying, that in my experience, then with working with a person who comes from visual arts, like for instance, en español en Colombia se llaman artes plásticas y visuales, which is very weird because when I mentioned that for the first time, people were like kind of offended of like because I just translated literally to plastic art, you know. And then they were like, what? No, like, you know, they were feeling like that. I was like, okay, no, okay, so it doesn't work anyway. So in my experience working with Juan Pablo, that I told you about this guy, this person Naoto is this Colombian sculptor who works here, who lives here, also in my building. Is a Colombian sculptor, and I remember when I invited him to this choreography that I did. I remember I was so scared, like because like I'm freaking out of space and time, and that's my knowledge, and that's my limitation. But then for him was completely the opposite because he just have experience of and he has this experience of on a stage. He is very he does performances for quite some time, but he comes from visual art, so then also he is very used to working in an ontological way with the material, which is something that was very clear after I worked with him, and that was like 5 years ago. Then I can see, for instance, that this is information that like in plastic or in free
Visual arts or
visual
fine
art,
arts.
in fine arts, yeah, in liberal arts and fine arts, then you have this ontological approach to material, which is great for what you guys are trying to do. So then in that sense, I see like Flor is doing that naturally. That she comes very often, and she's like, I see from the things sometimes I see, I guess it comes more naturally to her just to start like doing things.
Yeah, but also, oh, sorry, no, continue.
No, I think that's it.
No, that these are things that we also like already talk about. For example, if we work with objects, if we think about scenic objects, the materials has to make sense. For example, because if you think about what you are saying, like this ontological identity of the materials.
Can you repeat it can you repeat it again, because I lost you for a second?
Yeah, don't worry. If you think about, I think it's cool, like this idea of thinking like the ontological identity of the materials. If you, for example, work with a white balloon, it's a white balloon, but it's a balloon, like the meaning of a balloon, it might be related also with a, for example, I don't know, a party, a birthday connotations. And it's not the same using a balloon that faking a balloon than using another thing, I don't know. And we are trying to think about this when we are working. Also, maybe with acrylic, it was interesting because I think, well, this is something that I was talking today with some friends that were doing like they have like a subject for like a homework, and they were interviewing me in Spanish, and Nato wasn't there because it was in Spanish, but I was saying to them that we also try to create these autonomous objects somehow, and also like this idea of using, for example, these cursors that creates reflections and refractions on with the projector. We kind of know that something will happen, but we don't have like the total control of what is going on with that. I mean, with the light and where this light is going to, or how this is going to behave. And I think that that's the thing also. We play with things that we don't really know, as you said before, where is it going? We kind of have a barely idea, and I think that's part of playing with chaos somehow.
Yeah, so the video we just watched is from the open house from last Friday, and there were some visitors. And I found it really interesting question was that basically she was asking like how they are connected, how these elements are like connected, because I think people are used to like think, there's like OSC message coming from one to another, and the visual is triggering something.
Her question was technical.
I think so. I mean, maybe it's vague, but in that sense,
Very
like
vague. This context is
Yeah.
very big.
Yeah, but yeah, in that sense, like, you know, for us, like technically, most of the things are not connected, but also it's connected, or you can see some connection, right? It's up to you how you see it, but also, you know, it's not completely like random objects, because, for example, the
Oh.
prints are from, you know,
And
prints
also,
projection
and
is from Hydra.
also, I think maybe this could be, I mean, this doesn't have to be like this, but perhaps could be serve as a strategy. Is that, so one thing first to clarify, I think for me, for myself, no, and what I'm about to say is that, because this is gonna be recorded, is that is that I'm over avocado of not, I'm not an avocado, but I'm avocado of
Advocate.
advocate to
Advocate.
advocate avocado. Okay, no, so I'm completely pro something that is just whatever, you know, and it doesn't mean it, yeah, it's whatever, but it's a whatever. Yeah, it's I'm pro whatever. I have this conversation today with we were in this meeting with seats, and then I asked them to invite me to the coordination meeting, because in my time I want to start taking more responsibilities with them. And then I think I was basically just telling them, I have this conversation with Uli afterwards. So Uli and myself, we have, I think, a similar, if Uli will see this, hello Uli, we have a similar approach or curiosities, but I think a main difference that I didn't tell you is that I'm not concerned, or I'm not interested in knowing, say that there's this interest of art and science for both sides. But then I think the main she's interested to see, or I'm not interested to know if art and science, if they work together, if it's a good match. I'm not interested in that. I'm interested for sure in art and science and work together, but I'm not interested in the result. And I think because her approach is, what she's doing is very specific. She's kind of like, and she shared this with us, Naoto in Vienna. You remember that she's into, part of her research is about how to measure the impact of the arts in science.
Yeah, I
Anyway,
remember that. Yeah.
but this is side, like, that's her struggle, no? That she has to, for the stakeholders of big projects that we're talking about, of big money, is that she has to put numbers for that. So
To
I'm just saying
quantify.
that the only difference that I will see with myself with Uli is that I'm not interested in quantify the result, meaning that for me, whatever is fine. So okay, so I was trying to say that, wait, okay, this is introduction. I was trying to say that perhaps, because I understand that people want to understand. I understand that. As designer, I understand that, so as a communicator. So then say that when I, so yeah, so as designer, I understand that, and in order to facilitate that, I will propose, for instance, that if you have a durational performance that is like, I don't know, 6 hours, 5 hours, whatever is the time, perhaps is you take from time to time, so a time off where you basically, it's clear that things stop, you know, lights are off, whatever, you know, and you start going in conversation. So perhaps you could use this chat format that we have with Naoto, that basically you are in a performance, durational performance, but then from time to time you can invite the people to talk, and then you can like go in a conversation, an ongoing conversation with people, when you actually you do your best to, and you maybe you could be prepared also to defend or what you're doing basically. So this that I'm saying is, it doesn't have to be like that, you know, like in this format that I propose, but perhaps you can think that maybe you can give agency for a more just like a straightforward Western understanding of what is going on, what you guys are doing. Because
That's
actually,
really the spirit of questions and options.
to be honest, like what I'm proposing more is like, I'm thinking more of like a producer, is like, because you guys would like this to sell this, and then so you have to, you should use that space to promote yourself basically, until I mean, you have to see how much you can allow this capitalism to enter, you know. Then it's up to you how much you allow this to happen. But but I
yeah,
personally think it's completely fine to do that, huh?
yeah, and I think like I'm completely like, you know, for with that what you said, that like when I heard that question of, you know, for example, like how this element and that element is connected, I think it's really interesting to say that, you know, it's not connected, because it really gives a surprise to people. You know, if it's not like we're saying that, okay, we're using the sensor data and sending this to this with OSC and changing the color, for example, which is kind of, it's maybe interesting for people to hear, but it's not giving any surprise, because it's something, you know, technically possible and people who has understanding can imagine. But then if it's not connected, it really opens up so many, you know, possibilities. It can be
Yeah.
the choreography that Jorge was talking about, or it could be, if you're from technical side, they can imagine, you know, how they can be connected, or like, yeah, just gives them agency to it.
Yeah, but also like we don't have or we don't find a reason why to do it like that. I mean, it
But there could
doesn't
be,
make sense. It could be, yeah, but
no. What I'm saying is but because maybe you're going to a more complicated thing. What I'm saying, Flor, maybe
yeah.
just the only thing you have to say exactly that you said. We don't have a this is what I'm bringing back. Richter speaking. This is not the first time that an artist is basically speaking out, and it still is giving space for somebody to ask what is happening. Like, I don't know what is happening, just so you know, and that's it. It just, this will put the public at ease. They don't have to understand why, but they need to have some, they need to know. Basically, they don't understand, they don't need to understand why you do something, but I think they need to understand that it comes from, they need to understand that you don't know. Yes, I think so.
Mhm.
So to reframe, so again, they don't need to understand, they don't need to understand why are you doing something, but they need to, what? They need to
They
understand
need
that you
to,
don't know. Yeah.
okay.
They don't need to understand why are you doing something, but they need to understand you know. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah,
Yep.
I mean, that's kind of the artist statement, right? I mean, artist statement can be anything, but it should
Yeah.
be, I mean, if it's there, people can read it, whatever
Yeah.
bullshit it is.
And that's the easiest way. Like in performance, I see this is very often. You don't this is the easiest way to bypass the politics of the why. In performances, you find, for instance, very often you will have a score, greeting score of how you're supposed to interact with the art installation or something. This is the easiest way how to an artist gives a score for the audience to understand what to expect vis-a-vis with the artwork.
Yeah.
Without the need, or I mean, that's a different path also that I'm suggesting, without the need to establish a manifesto. That is the other place, you know, that's still, as an artist, you said, like, you know, you take the position that you don't know, and you really give the reasons why you don't know, because this is adding in this layer of, you say why you don't want to know, which is what we did in the application. I wrote about that, you know, like, we don't want to know. And then I say why.
Yeah, we also like kind of be working with this. I don't know if it's a statement, but at this point, I feel like somehow it is like this idea of it looks as if it's working, but it's quite random. Like in the end, we are not pretending anything. It's like it works. We don't know how, but it works.
So maybe I know we have so many things we can talk about, but it's not the 4-hour chat session yet. So we can because we talked about this idea of just doing chat forever and ever. We're not prepared for that, so we can come back sometime. But I think it's good. Yeah, like Flor and I, we didn't do this chat session like we do it for best practices, but maybe it's good to do it like this. Or always we can invite Jorge or other guests and have some
Yeah.
insights.
We just have a lot of conceptual maps.
Then yes, okay. Maybe we should just close this because I think this could be a chat to publish. I think this is an interesting thing that we talk here. Could be other people can use these things, so
Yeah.
that could be interesting for other people.
Yeah.
So thank you for watching. Thank you, you two, or well, thank
you,
me.
you too. Thank you.
Thank you.
You
Thank
too,
you,
and
you
you
too.
too.
You too.
You and you too.
And you too. Thank
You
you.
Everyone
too.
watching, everyone liking the video, everyone subscribing to the channel. Thank you. You're not obligated, but I appreciate it. See you next
No.
time.
Bye.